Rivers can, and quite often do, mark the border between countries. The Congo, Danube, Mekong, and plenty of others do exactly this. And it's no different for the Rio Grande in North America, which marks part of the border between the southwestern United States and northern Mexico. But for a brief period of time back in the mid-1800s, this river marked a very different border, one shared by the Republic of Texas and an unrecognized nation then fighting its own war of independence against the Centralist regime back in Mexico City. The Republic of the Rio Grande. Mexico's decade-long War of Independence finally came to an end in 1821, and with the signing of the Treaty of Cordoba, the continental area of the Viceroyalty of New Spain, which had existed since the fall of the Aztec capital nearly 200 years earlier, was reorganized as the Mexican Empire. This attempt at a constitutional monarchy didn't really work out, though. And so, in 1824, a new constitution was adopted, establishing the first Mexican Republic. It was a federation with a constituent Congress that granted a considerable amount of autonomy to states within the republic. That being said, the Constitution was born from a compromise between the country's deeply divided political factions, and many in the more conservative Centralist camp believed it went too far, leaving the national government weak and ineffective. Everything changed in 1835, when Centralists, riding the success of recent elections, pushed to end the Federalist system itself. Under the presidency of Antonio López de Santa Anna, Congress was dissolved and a new centralist government formed in its place. A series of changes to the 1824 Constitution were soon formalized as well, the so-called Seven Laws, which fundamentally altered the organizational structure of Mexico, curtailing states' rights. Among other things, free and sovereign states were replaced with more centralized departments, whose governors and legislators were chosen by the president. Now, to be fair, Santa Anna wasn't directly involved in everything that occurred here. There's a good reason he was called the absentee president. But the end result was something he clearly did not oppose, a unitary state with greater powers vested in the central government, namely the executive. Now up north, Texas was having none of it, and they weren't alone. In 1835, the people of Zacatecas in north-central Mexico rose up in rebellion against Santa Anna. Led by the governor himself, the Zacatecas militia posed a real threat, but ultimately was crushed by Centralist forces. Where Zacatecas failed, though, Texas succeeded, sort of. To make a long story short, Sam Houston and other leaders of the Texas Revolution managed to secure de facto independence from the government back in Mexico City. This was big, and when coupled with Santa Anna's increasingly dictatorial nature, inspired others who opposed the centralist power grab to act. States across Mexico openly rebelled, and several attempted to form their own governments. It was the same in Nuevo León, where a rather unassuming but impressively mustachioed man, Antonio Canales, issued a proclamation of sorts against the government. A lawyer by profession, Canales had been stirred to action following the seizure of his family's land holdings by Centralists, and, more generally, the dismantling of the federal system. In just over a year, he would become commander-in-chief and one of the founding fathers of the Republic of the Rio Grande. Before that, however, he knew the people needed to be organized, and so, 2 months later, he called for a convention in Laredo. Here, the Federalist Constitution of 1824 was recognized, and Canales offered to raise a force to defend the autonomy of northern Mexico. He quickly set out, roaming the desert-like shrublands of El Norte, and eventually crossed the Rio Grande in his quest to find recruits. The Federalist cause found many supporters here, and in a relatively short period of time, Canales gathered a respectable force composed of vaqueros, warriors from the Caddo Nation, and Texas Auxiliary Corps volunteers. He then marched to a small town called Estancia de Muir, where after encircling and forcing the surrender of a detachment of the Mexican army, a number of Centralist soldiers opted to enlist under Canales' command. By this point, Canales had become something of a hero throughout northern Mexico, with new recruits, material, and much-needed funds being sent his way from supporters. But it was here he made a strategic mistake. Rather than advance with the momentum of his recent victory behind him, he stayed put, undecided about his next course of action. When he finally did decide to attack a centralist garrison in Matamoros roughly 40 days later, a number of his men had already deserted. It took Canales weeks to reach the far-off town, which lays near the Gulf of Mexico, but when he did arrive, he quickly found himself outnumbered. Instead of risking the attack, he switched course, backtracking to Monterrey in Nuevo León, where he believed the centralist garrison under General Mariano Arista was weaker. No stranger to armed conflict, Canales had fought in the Apache-Mexico Wars during his youth. He nonetheless misjudged the situation here. Unable to break the centralist defenses and capture the town, Canales awoke to yet another challenge in late 1839, finding a sizable number of his force had apparently vanished overnight. He soon discovered General Arista had managed to bribe the men, and with morale in his camp reaching an all-time low, he decided to retreat across the Rio Grande. Despite these setbacks, a new convention was held just outside Laredo the following year. Its members endorsed the creation of a new, independent republic made up from the northern Mexican states of Coahuila, Nuevo León, and Tamaulipas, which respectively at the time had borders stretching as far north as the Nueces River, now fully within the state of Texas. The, as of then still mighty Rio Grande, effectively bisected the republic, and was therefore chosen as its namesake, with Laredo being designated as the capital. All this occurred without official representation from the breakaway states, and fully aware of this minor issue, a president was quickly chosen along with a Secretary of State and 3 counselors for each state. 10 days later, everything was formalized, a flag adopted along with a motto, and the Republic of the Rio Grande was born. Canales, for his part, became Secretary of War and was given the title Commander-in-Chief. The Republic still faced many problems, though. In seeking answers, the country's new president looked north to Texas. For its part, the Republic of Texas viewed the events unfolding to its south in largely a sympathetic light. The cause of the Republic of the Rio Grande and its people was, after all, not that different from their own. However, many back in Austin were apprehensive to fully give their support. While there undoubtedly was benefit in having a buffer state, if they were to formally recognize the Republic of the Rio Grande, Mexico would likely never fully recognize Texas's own independence. There also was the all-too-real threat of yet another Mexican military incursion, something which eventually did occur in 1842. All this weighed heavily on the mind of the President of Texas, Mirabeau B. Lamar, who held a meeting with Canales in 1840. And while he wouldn't commit to open support, Lamar did unofficially encourage Texan support for the new republic through money, arms, and importantly, volunteers. These would be needed because, not soon afterwards, word arrived that Centralist forces under the command of General Arista had moved into the Rio Grande Valley. Canales, with barely 400 men, prepared again to face his enemy from Monterrey, who reportedly had some 1,800 soldiers under his command. During the battle, one of Canales' commanders, a man named Antonio Zapata, who led a cavalry unit, was captured while on a foraging expedition. Convicted of treason when he refused to disavow the Republic, he was executed. His head was then placed on a pole and carried to his nearby hometown, where it was displayed for 3 days to discourage any would-be supporters. Canales did try a rescue mission, but was defeated by Centralist forces, losing 250 of his own men in the process. With no other option, he retreated to Texas again. The government of the Republic also moved north, relocating from Laredo to Victoria, Texas. North of the Rio Grande, Canales toured Texas in an effort to raise interest for his cause. He was well received in Houston, and by June 1840, when he arrived at San Patricio, he managed to cobble together a sizable force of just under 1,000 men, with more volunteers arriving each day. Texan Colonel Samuel W. Jordan played a significant role in drumming up volunteers and would go on to assist Canales with the recapture of Laredo and other towns. Having regained a foothold, Canales then set his sights on Saltillo, where a Centralist general was rumored to be residing. Jordan and 2 colonels, Juan Molano and Antonio López, were sent ahead as the vanguard of Canales' army. They encountered light resistance and continued their push deeper into the interior. But something was up. Molano and López seemingly were taking Jordan off course, going further south than expected. As the trail became nothing more than a cactus-filled ravine, López yelled out, "Long live the supreme government," and Central forces appeared en masse. Jordan had been betrayed. His forces, despite being completely outnumbered, somehow managed to fight their way out and retreat back to Texas. But this latest setback effectively marked the end of Canales' broader campaign. 2 months later, Canales entered secret negotiations with the Mexican government, and on November 6, 1840, he surrendered, later accepting a position within the army. As part of his deal, a general clemency was granted to other members of the Republic of the Rio Grande, which, in part, encouraged the Republic's president to return to Laredo, where he too surrendered, bringing an end to the short-lived Republic of the Rio Grande. Hey, as always, thanks for listening. The Republic of the Rio Grande is a very interesting side note in history. If it had been able to maintain its independence and secure its actual recognition from Texas or the United States, it's really just kind of interesting to think where that may have gone. Would Texas have opted to remain independent rather than be annexed by the United States? Would we have a series of independent republics on the border of what is now, the United States and Mexico? And how could this have encouraged, or discouraged perhaps, other breakaway republics in Mexico, like the Republic of Yucatan? It really is just kind of a overlooked but interesting kind of alternative to history that never really got a chance to go anywhere for rather obvious reasons. As always, thanks again for watching my video. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already done so, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again next time.